Hello and welcome to another episode of The Average EV. Today I'm going to be talking all about the Ultium platform and where we're at and where we're going. Let's get into it. Okay everyone, so if you've heard about GM, then you've probably heard about the Ultium platform. Basically, it's this adaptable, adjustable platform they have that they can use for all of their brands and for different sizes of vehicles. Now, I think it was about a year ago or something like that, I put out a tweet where I was like, Ultium? Because there was a point where GM was like selling no electric cars at all, except for whatever Bolts they still had. They had just canceled production of the Bolt. I think there were LYRIQs being sold as well. So it's just the LYRIQ and the Bolt, and that was it. And they had all these other cars that they were talking about, and nothing was coming out. Well, guess what? They are coming out, and they're going to be coming out in waves. GM had been struggling with sales. In May, they have had their best month of sales so far, which is looking good. And based upon the interest in the Equinox and also the future Bolt successor that will be built on the Ultium platform, I think that GM is going to be doing really, really well for a long time. So basically for this video, I want to break it up into a couple things. I just want to go over the whole Ultium portfolio really fast, and then I want to dig into the Ultium vehicles that are currently available, and then I also want to talk a little bit, of course, about how GM vehicles will hopefully soon have access to the Tesla Supercharger network, which makes it even more tempting for people to want to buy an Ultium vehicle. So first off, let's just go through the entire portfolio that GM has. We'll start with Chevrolet. There's the Equinox EV. If you haven't heard, this is the Ultium vehicle that I'm going to be picking up hopefully at the end of this month, maybe sometime in July. I'm just interested and intrigued in it because of the range and the size of it, and also the value. It brings an immense value. The base trim starting at around $33,000 before destination. So I think that's going to be an option that a lot of people who want to get into EVs are going to finally go for because of the size, the value, and the range, things that people are looking for. Next, we have the Blazer EV. This was the first entry of the Ultium platform for the Chevrolet vehicles. There's a little bit of a bumpy road with software. People who were reviewing it, their cars were shutting down, not working. There was a stop sale, and then they fixed all the software issues. Everything looks to be good. And from what I hear, people who have the Blazer seem to be enjoying it, which is great. The last currently of the Chevrolet portfolio is the Silverado EV. The work trucks have been out for a while. People have really been enjoying those. And now the RST, the consumer version, is coming out. Now they're starting out with the RST First Edition, which is going to be at around $97,000, which is expensive, but it's not really that expensive for how big of a battery, how much range, and how fast of charging you get, and all the technology. You can argue one way or the other. You won't see me buying it, but for someone who needs it for the utility, it's probably worth the money. That being said, the Silverado EV is eventually going to come in different sizes. I'm assuming there'll be like a 1LT, 2LT, 3LT, 4LT, something like that, or 4T. I don't know how they're going to label it exactly. But maybe if someone just needs something for local work or something like that, like you just need it to like take brush from your house. I don't know what you would do with it. I'm not like a truck person, but you could get the 1LT. If you need the hardcore towing and stuff like that, get the 4T or the RST. So there it is, the GM portfolio. And I kind of mentioned earlier, Chevy has alluded to the fact that they are going to have an updated Bolt that uses the Ultium architecture. We don't really know much about that, but it'll probably look really similar and just have an Ultium battery slapped on it. And then I'm expecting the price, it's got to be lower than the Equinox, so I would assume mid to upper 20s, but we'll see. Again, I don't want to like put any bad juju out there. Next, we're going to move on to the Cadillac Portfolio. So we have the LYRIQ. I hear a lot of great things about the LYRIQ. People love the LYRIQ and enjoy it. It's essentially the big battery Blazer, same charging speed with the big battery at 190 kilowatts, and people seem to love it. There were some issues with charging early with the LYRIQ. They seem to fix it a little bit. Hopefully they'll continue to work on it. And that's another thing about the Ultium platform, this Altify or whatever, where they can basically update any part of the car whenever they need to. Hopefully over time we'll see them continue to update the charging curve and charging performance. Next is one that is not on sale yet, but is allegedly going to be on sale by the end of this year, maybe next year, is the Optic, which is the, if you will, if the LYRIQ is the Blazer, the Optic is the Equinox. So it's a smaller version, and what I thought was really interesting about it was it only comes in all-wheel drive, which will be great if you want an all-wheel drive, and the price honestly isn't that bad for a luxury SUV with pretty decent range. Moving on in the Cadillac Portfolio, we have the Escalade IQ. This isn't for me. It's a little out of my price range, starting at around, they say, $130,000, but it looks like a really great luxury option if you're into that. It even says you can do, I believe, executive second row if you would like to do that. But it looks like a really cool offering. They're saying 450 miles of range. It's going to have probably similar charging to the Silverado. So it looks like a great option if that's for you. It's just not for me. Although I will say it looks really nice. Lastly, for Cadillac, we have the Celestiq. This is their sedan. I'm not a big fan of the design, but you know, it's kind of the back that I really don't like. If they fix that a little bit, and where the headlights, the tail lights are, kind of looks a little weird, but whatever. If that's for you, go for it. I couldn't find anything about pricing, but that is coming, and that is a part of the Cadillac Portfolio. Next, we have the GMC Portfolio. So we have the Sierra EV Denali, which looks really cool. When I was preparing for this video, I was looking between the Sierra and the Silverado, trying to figure out which one I liked better, and I kind of go back and forth. I think if the front of the Sierra was was black, I'd like it a little bit more. It's body color, so I'm not a fan of that. So maybe I give an edge to Silverado, but I do kind of like the general appearance of the entire vehicle better for the Sierra, and I think it has has a much more aggressive look, at least in my opinion. And again, that's gonna have 440 miles of range. Looks like a really good option if you want an awesome truck, and I'm assuming it's gonna be just as usable as that Silverado EV is that people currently are really big fans of, and it has the midgate, which is a really cool feature. And then lastly, for the GMC Portfolio, we have the Hummer EV SUV and then the Hummer EV pickup truck, which are just America in an SUV. They're super cool cars. Again, they're pretty expensive, but comparatively, they're not that expensive, I guess, if you really think about it. For what you're getting, you can get up to 3 motors. Here, it starts at $105,000 for three motors, 14 miles of range, 830 horsepower, 11,500 pound-feet of torque. So they're awesome vehicles. Maybe a little bit too much excess, but they're super cool. I actually saw one of the Hummer EV SUVs recently, and they look really nice. So that's kind of a wrap there on the Ultium platform and all of the current and future offerings. The next part, like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the ones that are currently available, pricing, drivetrain, stuff like that. So just really quick going through, the ones I'm talking about are the Equinox, Blazer, Optic, LYRIQ, Prologue, and Acura. Now, I know I've been talking about GM, and I talked about Honda and Acura. Well, basically, they had GM build them an electric car so they could get an electric car out there, so I'm including them as well right now. I have excluded the trucks because A, that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, and also I feel like most people that are shopping right now are looking at SUVs, so I'm going to stick to the SUVs. So as far as pricing is concerned, I'm not going to read everything, but we can see here the Chevy Equinox, with the current 2LT comes in at the lowest price at $41,900, and when the 1LT comes out later this year, it's going to be $33,600, which is an awesome price, and I think that's going to get a lot of people into EVs. You add that tax credit if someone's eligible and you're in the 20s, and it's finally comparable to the actual gas counterpart of the Equinox, or nearly the same. Then the most expensive is the Acura ZDX at $64,500, but with that you are getting more luxury and obviously a lot more drivability and sportiness. Moving on, as far as drivetrain is concerned, most of them offer some sort of front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, and then an all-wheel drive. It's worth noting that with the Optic, it only comes in all-wheel drive. Everything else has both options or will have both options. Some of them don't have everything quite yet. Like the Blazer EV will eventually have their rear-wheel drive model, which will actually have more range, even though it's more expensive than the all-wheel drive. So, but they're not offering a lower trim rear-wheel drive. It's all very confusing. A lot of these pricing structures and strategies. Moving on, with Ultium vehicles, at least with the SUVs, you've got one option. You've got the 85 kilowatt hour battery pack that charges at 150 kilowatts, or you've got the 102 kilowatt hour battery pack that charges at 190 kilowatts. So all of these here currently have different options. Equinox will only be the 85 kilowatt hour with 150. The Blazer will eventually have both options, because again, that rear wheel drive I was talking about actually has the bigger 102 kilowatt hour battery pack, whereas the smaller all-wheel drive has an 85 kilowatt hour. Very confusing if you're a consumer. The Optic, from what I can tell, will have the 85 kilowatt hour because it's the same platform as Equinox. The LYRIQ has the 102 kilowatt hour battery pack at 190 kilowatts. The Prologue has the 150 kilowatt hour, and the Acura has the 150 kilowatt charging speed, 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. Sorry about that. And then the Acura has the 190 kilowatt charging speed, 102 kilowatt hour battery pack. Sorry, that was a lot to say. It's on the chart if I was a little bit unclear, but yes. So in general, the charging is fine. It's not great. The Network Architect, if you haven't heard about his channel, go check it out. It's really interesting. He kind of catalogs all of the charging infrastructure that's being put in. But anyways, he has a LYRIQ. He loves it, and he thinks that the charging is fine. It really depends on my trip whether I think it'll be fine or not. For me, sometimes I really just want to get where I'm going, and I want the fast charging, and I want to optimize as best I can. But sometimes we are there for 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and it doesn't even matter. So he might be right. Obviously, if they fixed it, it would be awesome. But from what he said, it's perfectly fine, especially if you're not in a hurry and you're trying to enjoy your trip. Moving on to range, we have the Equinox EV's got the best range at 319 miles, and the worst going to the Chevy Blazer EV at 279 miles. And then everything is just in between. There are some others that are close. The LYRIQ's got 314, the Acura ZDX 313, as far as having the most, but it's all pretty much the same. And based on some 70-mile-an-hour range tests, the LYRIQ over-delivered from the advertised range. So I'm hoping that the Equinox will do the same thing, but I will bring that to you all when I finally get the car, hopefully sooner rather than later. When we're looking at cargo here, the Acura has the most at 63 cubic feet, whereas the Optic will have the least at 57 cubic feet, but really not that much smaller than the Equinox, which has 57.2 cubic feet. But I think for average use, it'll be perfectly fine. You get a car type carrier, at that point it won't even matter anymore. It's worth noting with cargo that none of these vehicles are going to have a frunk. They could have put it in, but they didn't, and it's not the end of the world. As far as battery size, I've talked about that a lot. You all can look at that. For towing, most of them say 1,500 pounds, even if it's just front wheel drive. I don't know if I would do that, but it does say you can. The Acura ZDX is 3,500 pounds for towing, and then the LYRIQ actually says you can't tow with it. That's at least the rear wheel drive. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Moving to horsepower, the Equinox and the Prologue have about the same horsepower, and the Blazer EV has the most at 388 horsepower. So again, if you want a nice and spicy car, the Blazer might be for you. Moving on to torque, Optic is allegedly going to have the most torque. Remember, it's going to come standard all-wheel drive at 354 pound-feet of torque, and the Equinox at 236 pound-feet of torque. Again, I do want to say all these numbers I'm quoting for torque and power are based off of the drivetrain that I have up at the top. You can get more if you option up to the all-wheel drive version. Lastly, I have the efficiency. So I basically took the advertised EPA with the battery pack, which gave me the efficiency. The most efficient is going to be the Equinox at 3.75 miles per kilowatt hour. So that's really great. That's better than the ID4, the 2023 ID4, but I think it's on par with the 2024 with the improved motor. So if you're shopping those, you're looking at about the same efficiency, and when you are paying for charging, you'll probably pay the same amount. The Acura ZDX has the worst efficiency with 3.06, and the LYRIQ next to it with 3.07. I'm not, if Walter's watching, I'd love to hear what he's been getting as far as efficiency is concerned. Again, I'm just going based off of published numbers, but he would know the real world numbers. And lastly, I just did this for fun. How much would it cost to charge to drive 100 miles? Obviously, because of efficiencies, the Equinox would be the cheapest at $11.20, and the Acura ZDX would be the most expensive at $13.72. So you're looking at every 100 miles, you're looking at a difference of $2.50 as far as charging is concerned. So probably in the end game, not like that big a deal, but if you really want to save money as much as you can, maybe look at the Equinox EV and one of the trims it has. So there we go as far as comparing the Ultium trims that are available today. Which one should you go for? It's kind of confusing because if you option the Equinox up enough, well, you're looking at Blazer territory for money. And so it's like, well, do you get the Blazer or not? But the Equinox, you can currently option Super Cruise, whereas the Blazer, you can't currently option Super Cruise, but you'll be able to eventually. The LYRIQ already has Super Cruise. Honda Prologue doesn't. And Acura has Super Cruise. It's just called something different. I don't know if the Honda Prologue will eventually have a version of Super Cruise, but there it is. So which one to get? That's a really great question. And then when this Optic comes out, it's going to confuse things even more because it's a little bit smaller than the Blazer, but it's going to be a little bit more luxury than the Blazer. And it's got the horsepower and torque isn't as good as the Blazer, but it's good enough. So if you're shopping, I would say go get in the car, drive it, see if you like it. If you're purely basing it off of for monetary reasons and you want to save money, that 1LT Equinox is probably going to be the buy. I'm going for the 3LT just because I've always wanted ventilated seats and Super Cruise, so that's why I'm optioning up. But in reality, it's probably not the smartest thing in the world to do that. I probably should get the Blazer and get a nicer car, but it's fine. I do like the way the Equinox looks as well, but the Blazer looks really nice too. Okay, everyone, I wanted to talk a little bit about how GM, just like Ford and Rivian and all the other companies, made an agreement with Tesla to gain access to the supercharger network. It is speculated that it'll be very soon, hopefully by the end of the summer, if not by the end of the year. And this makes it even more tempting to go for one of these GM products. Again, they don't charge the best. They're not the best in the world, but they're all really great. There is the potential that they could improve things over time. Obviously, I haven't heard things one way or the other about that, but there is a possibility they could work on thermals and whatnot and kind of improve the charging curve. But having access to the supercharger network is just going to be awesome because not only will you have access to all of the current CCS network, but you'll be able to go to any supercharger, or not any, but most superchargers, and charge there. And if you go to a CCS charging network and it's not working, or one of the stations caught on fire, that recently happened in Richmond, then you can go to the supercharger network, which there will assuredly be nearby, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to using that, honestly, both for my Equinox and for my wife's ID4 when we road trip, and I think that should be a strong consideration for people when they're buying an EV. So that's kind of all I have right now to talk about Ultium. I think it's a really cool platform. I think it's cool that they can adapt it to different sizes, and it's allowing them, now that they've got their battery stuff fixed, they've got their software stuff, they can kind of pump out cars. And I wouldn't be shocked if they put out big numbers of cars over the rest of this year and really impress people with what they're doing. One of my big worries, concerns, is that they're not going to keep up with the software well enough or as good as Tesla and Rivian do, but maybe I'm wrong, and I hope they do. Again, hopefully Walter watches this video. If he could drop down below and tell us maybe a little bit about how many times he's received updates on his LYRIQ, he could possibly speak to how the software is going good, and they're going to transfer that to the rest of the Ultium platform as they push out these new models. So yeah, that is all I have for today. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts about the Ultium platform down below. The one thing I really want to hear about is, what are your thoughts about the charging? Again, it's not the best. We're looking at maybe like 10 to 80 in 40 or 42 minutes. I don't have an official time or anything like that, but I'd love to hear your all's thoughts. Like, how low do you even go on a road trip as far as percentage-wise is concerned, and how high do you charge up? And is it going to matter for you because you stay at the charger too long because you're with your family and you're walking the dog and you're using the bathroom, you're buying food? I'd love to hear it down below. And of this whole Ultium platform, which vehicles are you most excited about and why? Leave those down below. I'd love to see that. It helps me kind of keep in touch with the market and what people are thinking as I read and learn more and more about these vehicles. So thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, as I will be bringing a lot more Ultium, specifically Equinox, content that I'm excited to share with you. I have a lot of things planned that I'm going to do as soon as I get the vehicle. It's going to be a really busy week when I get the vehicle, but I'm excited for you to see that. So please subscribe now, so when it pops up, you will be able to see it, watch it, and enjoy it. And of course, give this video a like, follow me on X, and I will catch you all next time.